Welcome back to the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you all snuggled up and ready for another Lights Out bedtime story? Well, you're in for a treat tonight because we have part 4, chapter 4, that's right, of Fing by David Williams. Chapter 4, Bestest Best. After breakfast that morning, Mr. and Mrs. Meek gave their daughter a lift to school. And I mean lift, literally. Every morning they were forced to lift her up and carry her there. Myrtle refused to walk, even though it was only a short distance away. It was a mighty effort carrying her, as she mostly ate chocolate. Myrtle was as heavy as an ox. "Put me down," Myrtle ordered, as her poor parents made the final stagger to the school gates. Once they carefully lowered her to the ground, Father passed his daughter her industrial-sized lunchbox. It was so big and heavy, it was on wheels. "Have a lovely day at school, my sweetest of hearts," he said. "Don't forget, by the time I get home from school, I want a Fing," she bawled before waddling off into the playground, knocking several smaller children to the ground as she did so. "Oof, oof, oof." "My angel of heaven, we promise we will do our absolute bestest best," called out Mother brightly. This stopped Myrtle in her tracks. Slowly she turned round and reached into her lunchbox. "Bestest best isn't good enough," she hollered, and Myrtle pulled out one of the tall cartons of chocolate milk and lobbed it right at her mother. Whiz, splat, ow! It hit poor Mrs. Meek right in the face, soaking her and her pink flowery dress. "Thanking you kindly," remarked the lady, not sure what else to say. Father passed his wife the handkerchief that he always kept in his breast pocket. "There we are, Mother." Mrs. Meek dabbed at the chocolate milk. It was little use. The pink flowery dress was now a brown chocolatey mess. "Best is better than best," appealed Father. Once again Myrtle reached into her lunchbox. "Oh dear," muttered Father, closing his eyes as he was sure something was about to be lobbed in his direction. He was right. Zoom! Splurge! A bucket of chocolate mousse hit him, bang, right on the top of the head. "Thanking you muchly," he said, like his wife, not knowing what else to say. Without a word, Mother passed the handkerchief back to her husband, and he attempted to demousse himself. "Don't you worry your pretty little head," called out Father, lying. There was nothing pretty or little about Myrtle's head. "We will have that Fing for you as soon as you're home from school." "You better," replied Myrtle, "or else." Neither Mr. or Mrs. Meek knew what else was, but whatever it was, it sounded nasty. Drrrring! The school bell rang. As soon as Myrtle began lumbering off towards her classroom, Father took his wife's hand. "Oh, you are very forward, Mrs. Meek," he remarked. "I know the perfect place to start looking for a Fing," said the librarian. "Where?" "The library, of course." The end of Chapter 4 of Fing by David Williams, here on the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good night.